Check this out. The video that is playing right now is consisting of information, which is just the order of zeros and ones that are streaming to your device. And the way this information is being delivered is through one of many thousands of data centers and data pipelines across the huge planet. And given the Earth is 71% water, there is a huge network of data pipelines underneath the ocean connecting the entire world. And this entire infrastructure has gotten really big, and so the distribution of information. So how much did these things affect the distribution of information? Well, that's exactly what we're going to be talking about in this video. Stick with me. So probably the most important invention of this century has been the invention of gates, or more specifically electronic gates or logic gates, or aka just transistors. But what's so special about just a gate that can either allow or block an electrical signal, you may ask? Well, that's a good question, and a good answer is paralyzation. Now, just having a single gate is pretty useless, but when you have these gates working parallel to each other, you could be able to represent an alphabet by having 8 of them running parallel to each other. And the alphabet is 1 byte, and each gate working is binary. And boom, with this concept, we invented computing, which will change the world forever. But not too fast. We still need to know how to communicate the information, and without that, it's completely useless. So we did transmit some bytes worth of data between 2 or multiple local hosts 50 years ago. And shortly after, layering these local connections with various protocols and routing them through a privately built ISP allowed us to establish communication across an entire city. And that was a huge deal back then. The only other way to interpret information was through the sheer papers of books, and books are expensive, so were the resources to host and distribute digital information. But luckily, the slope of mankind's evolution got a completely different shift. Looking back 200 years ago, it would statistically tell us within the next 50 years, we will be dealing with 10 times as much data as that time. But now today, the amount of data we deal with is not as 10 times as much, but rather 10 million times as much. And the more the economy backbone is relying on digital information, the more resources will be built to support that. Naturally, that will significantly bring down the cost of information alone, and that will bring more and more people into being resourceful to spread more inexpensive information. And also to keep in mind, big data has to be handled by a powerful algorithm. As information centralization gets bigger, the more data volumes will be created. The more time passes, the more we climb up to the slope of Morse code. And at this moment, we're at the verge of coming to an end of Morse code. We can only go at this pace for like some few years, but then we will hit the wall. And that's the exact reason why I think this exact set of few years is going to be hugely revolutionary, because what's after hitting the wall has to be really big. And by a natural law, information will keep getting more and more centralized to every square kilometer occupied space of the population. And the volume of building resources to interpret that with more big data will explode. Just like a supernova scattering new materials across the galaxy, there's going to be a burst of information that will drive average knowledge index of the population crazy high. Already, our modern infrastructure across the entire planet is Earth billion, and within 2025, it will hit an astonishing 9.1 billion. And this is just the cost of the optical fiber connection cable network, adding up data-centric part, which is the key necessary to handle data. It will go really high. But our incredible progress in scaling of raw processing power has made some insane pieces of hardware available to us, These types of hardware resources can not only drive big data structures, but can create new by the input of many old data strings. And you can't even imagine how big of a change that will make to the world. Information will be made so freely accessible that you wouldn't even need to go out a single step outside your room to learn whatever you want. And this will lead more and more people to not pay for information and invest in innovation. And things like traditional education system will be crashed for good reasons. And the market share for all types of these things we consider viable will move online. And looking already at the current e-commerce market share from 2014 to 2023, getting how much that revenue has grown, it's probably safe to assume it's gonna set fire to the traditional businesses. And that's what you call the age of information revolution. And if you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to Alphenstein TV. And as always, keep your eyes open.